Well, we are learning now that federal investigators are in possession of video footage that was taken inside of Combs's residence. We hear that these investigators have been contacting individuals that they have seen on this footage. One person, in addition to the accusers who have filed these civil suits, is a male sex worker.
The FBI agents have revealed shocking news about Diddy that you won't believe. After Sean Diddy Combs finally fell from grace following the Cassie lawsuit, a lot has happened. More and more incriminating and shocking evidence is piling up against the once admired hip-hop star. From wrecked house after raid footage to FBI agents spilling the beans, let's get into it. So recently, TMZ News got a hold of video footage leaks of the raid that happened at P. Diddy's compound.
The rumors are that Diddy was running some kind of Epstein type deal where he was filming everybody, right?
That's the rumors. Yeah, I don't know that there's any proof or anything other than that.
The thing is, like, we're getting the rumors from the internet, and the internet thinks that the Taliban took out that bridge in Baltimore. So it's like, who fucking knows? Who knows what's real?
That's what Diddy's lawyers, I think, said. It was like that these are just trumped up charges. Not trumped up, I don't think they said that, but like bullshit charges.
Dude, when Homeland Security invades your house,
you got problems.
With dudes with fucking guns and body armor. There's
someone said that they weren't there to take stuff, they were there to delete everything. Like the real people that were in there, you know.
Oh,
like
that's funny.
Oh,
that's funny. Yeah. That's fun. Of course. There's layers upon layers. When you get into these fucking conspiracy theories, man, they never end. They never end. There's just layers upon layers upon layers.
It's fun to talk about.
It is fun to talk about. It's hard to know what's true. But
yeah.
wow, people genuinely love it when someone like Diddy gets caught, though. The glee that people have is weird.
Why?
Because he's too successful. Also, it's like there was always so much East Coast, West Coast shit that's still like in the zeitgeist, you know, like with Biggie and Tupac, and they were all hating at each other, and they both got killed, and there was a lot going on. And then there's people that thought that Puffy was involved and Suge Knight was involved.
I think Suge Knight's the one who said the thing I just thought of.
What thing?
About that they were there to delete stuff.
Well, if he really was filming everybody, I mean, he had a lot of people at those parties, right? You know who said? Luke from 2 Live Crew?
Yeah, he said he was to leave early.
Yeah, when Luke from 2 Live Crew is leaving early, like, you got a wild party.
Now, after the house raids, the excessive show of force by the HSI didn't go unnoticed. Attorney Brian J. McMonagle thinks that it was quite shocking.
But to see what happened the other day, what was your reaction to it?
I was shocked. They didn't just come heavy; they came nuclear. Seeing the kind of federal response you saw at the execution of those warrants was stunning. It looked like they were hitting El Chapo's house when I saw it on the news, and I had the same reaction. I mean, I had been looking at it and hearing the allegations and studying some of the lawsuits, but I never thought it would rise to the level of federal intervention, particularly at that level. Stunned. And my initial thoughts were twofold. One is that they're very close to indicting somebody, or two, they had some really hard intel that told them they had to move quickly so they could discover evidence that their information was indicating was either located at one of these residents, but it was stunning in terms of the swiftness and the breadth of it, I must tell you.
Well, listen, I wanted your perspective too, because fresh off the presses yesterday, late yesterday, Diddy's attorney, he's now being represented by Aaron Dyer, released a very long statement on the rapper's behalf. As a defense attorney, I'm curious your perspective on it. So it says, quote, yesterday, there was a gross overuse of military-level force as search warrants were executed at Mr. Combs' residences. There is no excuse for the excessive show of force and hostility exhibited by authorities or the way his children and employees were treated. Mr. Combs was never detained, but spoke to and cooperated with authorities. Despite media speculation, neither Mr. Combs nor any of his family members have been arrested, nor has their ability to travel been restricted in any way. This unprecedented ambush, paired with an advanced, coordinated media presence, leads to a premature rush to judgment of Mr. Combs and is nothing more than a witch hunt based on meritless accusations made in civil lawsuits. There has been no finding of criminal or civil liability with any of these allegations. Mr. Combs is innocent and will continue to fight every single day to clear his name. What are your thoughts on that?
Perfection. He's obviously represented by a great lawyer, and that's the exact response that you want. This is an indication from the defendant, if he is going to be a defendant, that they're not messing around, that they're not going to lie down. It's unequivocal. It's I'm innocent, and if you've got something, bring it. I don't know that you could have crafted a better statement, and I think it's an indication of what's to come, because if they are going to bring charges, this is a case that's going to go to trial.
Well, that's my question. So when they say that he cooperated, there was a lot of talk, a lot of early speculation that Diddy had left the country, that, he escaped. Doesn't appear to be the case. But what does it mean that he cooperated with them? Do you think he had advance notice of what was happening at his home? Do you think he was informed right when it was happening? What do you think it means by he cooperated?
I don't know that you could read much into that.
Okay.
Cooperation takes on a couple of different meanings. Cooperation could mean that he's already met with law enforcement. I don't think that he has. Cooperation could mean that he's cooperating with law enforcement. I don't think that he has. I think this was a statement by his lawyer basically saying, hey, listen, we're not going anywhere. We'll face these charges. If somebody needs access to dwellings or records, they can issue subpoenas. You don't have to come with the strike force here if you need information or if you need evidence. We've got it, and we look forward to cooperating with an investigation that'll clear my client's good name. And I think that's the only way you can read that.
In an interview with CNN, a former FBI deputy explains why the civil lawsuit sparked the interest and intervention of Homeland Security.
Well, it's not uncommon for allegations in civil lawsuits to be considered by federal investigators and federal prosecutors and reviewed to determine whether or not a federal crime may have been committed. And that seems to be what happened here. I thought it was interesting that the attorney's statement really basically confirmed for the public that some of the investigative interest was likely generated from these lawsuits. Which is interesting because several of the lawsuits allege activity that likely would fall within the parameters of sex trafficking. Several of these women claim to have been transported from one state to another and then drugged and assaulted, or his former girlfriend who claims to have been forced to perform sex acts with different people in different states as they traveled around the country. So I think it was an unfortunate almost admission by the lawyer. Not that it has legal significance, but it certainly puts us in a position to speculate more accurately about what's actually driving this investigation.
I mean, it's interesting that if that was a mistake by the attorney or, unwise wording by the attorney, I mean, they had a day to come up with a statement. It's interesting that that's then what they came up with. I mean, what are some of the reasons why law enforcement officials would choose to execute 2 search warrants simultaneously and with that level of force? Because that's the other criticism one of the other criticisms by the attorney, that it was an over, the use of sort of armored vehicles and folks in Kevlar.
Yeah, so why the search warrant simultaneously? Well, again, at the attorney's direction, we can now look to the civil suits for clues. And one of them, for me, is that several of these victims alleged that Mr. Combs and his associates videotaped these sexual encounters. So that is exactly the kind of evidence that you would want to go to someone's home to see if you could find. So I would expect that was probably included in the search warrants, both at the same time, because once you hit one house, the subject knows that you're probably going to hit the other houses looking for the same stuff. So you're better off doing them if you have probable cause in 2 locations, you're better off doing them at once. And finally, the roundhouse swing he took at the show of force, really kind of classic defense attorney tactics to try to turn around a bad press day. But in fact, Mr. Combs has a long history of being investigated for things like assaults, harassment, threatening people with baseball bats and kettlebells and things like that. And the way it works in law enforcement is when you are planning a search warrant, if you have any information, and it doesn't have to be a criminal conviction, just intelligence that indicates that someone who's going to be at that residence may have a violent history or have armed themselves against people in the past, you're going to automatically qualify that search warrant or classify it as armed and dangerous. And that classification alone brings an additional level of protection, of tactical preparedness, to ensure that there's no problems, that everything is done in as safe a way as possible. So I think what we saw yesterday was understandable in the context of an armed and dangerous warrant.
I moved to New York City, and I lived with Sean Puffy Combs for a year.
That's the crazy thing. Now, that was L.A. Reid's idea, right? We're sending you over to something called Puffy Flavor Camp.
There you go.
To learn
Flavor Camp.
Yeah,
Flavor
that's
Camp.
what it was called. And you're going to go to Puff Daddy's. He's going
In the 90s, do you understand what that's like?
Puffy's place was like just filled with chicks and orgying like nonstop, right?
No, not really. I mean, but hey, it was curious. I got a chance to see some things.
Yeah, but you were 13. What were you seeing?
I went there to see the lifestyle.
Right.
And I saw it. And it was but I don't know if I could indulge and understand what I was even looking at. It was pretty wild.
So nobody tried to, some woman didn't come along.
I didn't say that.
Okay.
I didn't say that. What I did say is that there were very curious things taking place. And I didn't necessarily understand it.
Biggie Smalls was there.
Biggie Smalls was there. Lil' Kim, Craig Mack.
All these people are hanging around.
Yeah, man. Faith Evans.
And your parents
Jodeci,
were
Mary J.
okay?
Blige. They didn't know nothing about this shit.
Oh.
I was having a good time. You know what I mean?
Does he have you doing any chores? Are you doing dishes at all? I mean, to keep you humble somewhat? Or are you just like, can you stay up till 4 a.m. with them and party?
I mean, I could. I actually stayed up longer than them.
And do you have money? What's going on?
I mean, I had like per diem.
Yeah.
I had like,
What
like
a
a living.
life.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
14 years old. You're a dad now. Would you ever send your kid to Puffy Camp?
Hell no.
Like every time I walk past his house, and obviously the Playboy Mansion's right there, and we know about the tunnels that connect from the Playboy Mansion
to here.
I'm sure they connect here. Why wouldn't
there are places that connect? So what kind of energy? What kind of energy are you picking up?
There's just like darkness.
I never got paid what I was worth, and I never got the respect I was worth. So the disdain that I got for Puff is more like, you trying to keep me here. I'm not here. All my peers is up here. All my peers are bosses. When it's time, just like somebody raised somebody up, they did work with you, they go from your little man to maybe A&R to something else. He just kept trying to keep me right here, like he didn't want me to grow at anything.
We used to go to when we go to the club, we used to have these bottles, right? And on this bottle, they be regular Moet bottles. On them bottles right there, they've been to have something to make the girls be real slippery and all of this kind of stuff. So when you get up, they be like, don't touch them bottles right there and only drink them bottles right there. So we already knew what the drill was. You just don't mess with them bottles, right? Then all of the girls is in the club after a while. They all running, opening up their mouth like little birds. He just run around just popping pills in their mouth. Pop pill. And then that was the party. I used to, we used to be on the road, you'd be like, let me go with my Puff room, see what they doing. And you knock on Puff door, he'd be sitting there damn near butt naked. You ever just had a grown ass man answer his hotel door butt naked and they'd be like, come on in? You'd be like, I'll come back. Bro, put some clothes on. What are you doing? I don't want to see you naked. Grown man stuff. Yo, that's kind of disrespectful. So when you get, that's called the test off. How you make sure you breaking in. Look, call the artist up here to the room, tell him I'm gonna have a meeting about my tub. He be in there by the tub and stuff soaking.
It is quite clear Diddy may have finally crossed the line. Now let's turn to another FBI agent who shared her personal thoughts on the case. Diddy is remorseful, not because of the potential harm caused by his actions, but because he got caught, is what she believed.
Tasha, I actually am surprised that he took this step, but he's not sorry. He's sorry he got caught. That's why he made this step, in my opinion. He went so far as to pay the hotel to keep this video quiet. So I don't believe he's sorry. If he was sorry, this is something he would have admitted to right away. And as you mentioned before, this is something that he has vehemently denied in the past.
Yeah, and Mark, LA's district attorney has already said that Diddy will not be charged for this assault because of the statute of limitations. We actually spoke with Gloria Allred about this last night, who has represented other victims with allegations against Diddy. She believes charges could still stem from this video. I want to listen to that quickly together.
Under the law, to file a criminal charge for this type of misconduct, it's too late. But now that doesn't mean that somehow it might, if the federal government ends up filing, indicting and filing charges against Mr. Combs, it may be that, for example, if they file a RICO violation, that has a longer statute of limitations.
Violation. Mark, what do you think of this, a RICO violation?
Well, I think this is any criminal charge in state court and from the DA's office is the least of his concerns. As Tracy will tell you, I mean, he was hit by the FBI and Homeland Security. They're not there to investigate an assault that occurred in 2016. He's in a box that the feds have caught him in, and he's not going to get out of it, okay? I don't think he's going to get out of it. We're hearing all these rumors and all these lawsuits that are going on that specifically point to human trafficking, sex trafficking as well, where he benefited from. This is actually going to be evidence that's going to bootstrap in and going to be able to show in a trial, if there ever is one of that show, this is how he acts. This is his modus operandi. This is not a new crime that they're going to charge him with, okay? But it could be a predicate act, and Ms. Allred was completely correct. This could be a RICO charge against him. My point is, I think he's already in a box he's not going to climb out of. They just haven't put the lid on it yet.
And Tracy, I saw you nodding there earlier. I'm going to ask you about this, but I also think it's an interesting moment in time because Cassie Ventura's name was dragged through the mud last year when she first came forward with these allegations. Tell me a little bit more about the court of public opinion, first of all, turning in her favor. And then also, could this incident add anything to the FBI investigation into Diddy? Because it's now been almost 2 months since his homes were raided.
Well, I wholeheartedly agree with what Mark said. And I also think, too, the charges from Homeland Security, any federal charges, in my opinion, because I feel this may be a RICO or trafficking charge that could come down, is going to take some time. I've worked RICO cases that have taken actually years to investigate. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen here, but I don't think that this is something that's going to be handed down, an indictment that's going to be handed down very quickly. Now, in terms of, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
In terms of the court of public opinion, look, I think Diddy actually dragged the federal government, quite frankly, through the mud. When these search warrants were executed, he said that they used inappropriate force. In my opinion, this video right now gives them all the reason in the world.
Now, as the case unfolds, the question on everyone's minds is, will P. Diddy get arrested?
So I absolutely believe, and again, simply my hypothesis, he is innocent until proven guilty, that he will be arrested and indicted on sex trafficking charges. I have no doubt about that. And I do believe that he was most likely the kingpin of this. These girls, what that tells me, if it's out of the Southern District of New York, is this is spanning multiple states and that he is trafficking or allegedly trafficking girls across multiple states, across the United States. This isn't just an isolated incident in one location. And so I have heard things as well about his Hamptons parties and things happening in those Hamptons parties as well. So I suspect more evidence may come out as a result of that. But these are extremely serious charges. And part of me, too, is frustrated by somewhat the complacency, right, of the entertainment industry as a whole in this. And I think sometimes people fly under the radar for a long time, like Epstein did as well, because people are scared. People want to still climb the ranks. And we're doing it all the while sort of sacrificing the safety of these young victims or girls that are involved in this. And that is deeply troubling.
Before we get into more of this, I hear you, and I think, it's really, really frightening to think about. I mean, I read all these allegations and the lawsuits, and I've never heard anything like it. And obviously we don't know exactly where this investigation's going. But if Combs is charged with federal crimes here, but he's not in the country, and he's actually in a country or a jurisdiction where there's no extradition agreement, how do you get him back? What do federal authorities do?
That's a really good question. And I looked up just because I was curious actually about Antigua. I don't know all of them off the top of my head. Some I do, some I don't. But we do have an extradition treaty with them. Right now, though, because of the public nature of this, I have a very hard time believing that a country would allow his plane to land with him on it in their country. They don't have to let him land if they don't want to. And so I think that it would be very difficult
for him to be able to land in an inhospitable country simply because they don't want him. We do have extradition treaties with more countries than I think people would think. And typically they will send folks back to us as long as we take the death penalty off of the table. And I don't believe that this is a death penalty case. It's Southern District of New York. And so I believe that whether we have an extradition treaty or not with whatever country he may or may not go to, they will send him back.
Now, whether or not P. Diddy can sneak himself out of these lawsuits is for time to decide, but the decision to follow up on more such interesting stories is totally up to you. Click on one of the cards above and watch another amazing video.